Ooh, it's the weekend when I post this, and we're going to talk about some paranormal shit. Okay, I lived around Prince Albert my whole life. I've been pretty open about that. And one of the things that I know about PA is that it has, I know a few things about PA. We're not to go when it's dark. For reasons not just because it's PA after dark, but for, just all kinds of reasons, right? Like ghosts and goblins, right? To quote Billy D. Williams. When I think of scary places or when I think of ghosts and goblins, especially on Prince Albert, I think the St. Louis Ghost Light, right? I remember watching on TV when I would have been about 10, when Unsolved Mysteries came down and did a shot on it and did a little story on it. Right, I remember hearing about the old City Hall, which is now the Arts Center, the corner of, I think, 2nd Ave and 10th Street, where, a light will go on, right? You'll hear footsteps up the stairs, doors closing, that sort of stuff. And keep in mind, this is all anecdotal information. I don't have any proof. Nothing like that. I don't have evidence. I'm not going to grab a bag with Bigfoot's head in it or something like that. It's not nothing like that. But instead, Historical Society, the museum, you hear things about that. And I think it's a lot of times it's just our perceptions, because anything that has historical significance, in other words, is really old and maybe you hold in some value, you might feel that there's a spiritual connection to it, like something is tethered to this item. Like, oh, I have this watch that, when I hold it, I can see the ghost of Abe Lincoln or some weird stuff like that. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I want to talk more about the history around PA in terms of the paranormal. Because we have a lot of individuals in town like that do tarot cards. We got tarot cards, we got tea leaves, we got palmistry, the reading palms, right? Those sorts of factors, those sorts of things people rely on. And what I find interesting about that is, while I do believe that those things are true, I believe there's some people that are more in tune with the paranormal or the psychosocial or however you want to call it. I do think that there's other folks that are good at preying on that, because if you miss someone so much that you want to get some closure or hear a message or convey something to them, there's people that can definitely take advantage of that, because you're going to be looking for anything that remotely fits the story that is them. Okay? And I'm talking about mentalists, charlatans, right? Those sorts of things. I'm thinking about people that can, actors, right? Like, I'm thinking about people that can play that part. Because it's true, man. There's, I'm sure everyone out there who has psychic abilities thinks they have psychic abilities, and I'm sure everyone out there that doesn't have psychic abilities who's doing this just to kind of line their pockets, and you can see that. And I can see that work. And I'm not accusing anyone, I'm not singling anyone out, I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff, because that's not what I do. What I'm looking at is folks like John Edwards, right? I don't know if you've ever seen him or not, but he had his own show where it was like, I can't remember what it was called, the John Edwards Psychic Time, I don't know. But he would like, oh, was there someone in the audience? Right, a lot of cold calling, right? It's like, someone in the audience, I'm getting an M. Oh, me, my name is Matilda. Yes, I'm hearing Matilda. It's coming through that you had a grandfather, you had a grandma, you had an uncle, you had an aunt, you had a cousin. My cousin died. Oh, okay, yes, that's who it is. It's your cousin. And his name started with an A, no, B, no, C. Was there a C in his name? No. Was there a D? Yes, his name was Danworth or whatever, right? And you build it up with that just by their reaction, and it's similar to interviewing someone. You're just taking what they're presenting and making more questions to get more information out of them to tell you about that. So, like, I would always ask something specific, right? Like, I don't know, it could be anything. What was his favorite color of socks that he always wore, right? Things like, if he had one, or when he was his favorite hockey team, or whatever the case, right? You can ask specific questions. But I find that there are individuals that can, I think, peer through that veil and connect with those that have either passed on or objects, whatever the case may be. And I do think that sometimes people linger around, right? And I don't think it matters what religion you are. I'm not really religion specific, or if you're spiritual or however the case may be. I do think that it's up to you and your belief system what you get out of it too. Because listen, man, if there was someone that could actually talk to like the deceased and get a clear message across, you'd think that person would be, like, why wouldn't you talk to Tesla to get his wireless energy that he did 100 years ago, right? Or, commune with, I don't know, Ben Franklin to see what, find out what the real gist of the Constitution was that everyone's fighting over now. You think that those individuals that would have a place or position of power or influence or just even of a connection to be like, okay, we're going to find out what happened. Did George Washington really have wooden teeth? We'll find out tonight when I ask him live on the show, right? That kind of stuff. But you don't see that. Instead, it's always kind of in the background. We think at carnivals, right? Or living rooms, whatever. And maybe people can only focus on the individual in front of them because that's the energy they're connecting with. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not of that persuasion. I'm not clairvoyant like that. But I do think people can pick things up just by their intuition and just by vibes they get. Just like if you go into an environment, like a work environment, where if you walk in and it feels heavy. Has anyone been in that position where it feels heavy, it feels thick? Maybe you'll go get a smudge or a prayer done or some sort of ceremony to alleviate any restless spirits about. And then you notice it feels clearer. This house is cleansed, right? Poltergeist. You notice those things, right? So is it because it's happening? Or is it like a placebo effect because in your head this was done, so it's better now? See what I mean? That's where I think people can be really... I think people can be taken advantage of if they're not careful. And this is like this isn't an exact science either. So if you're paying for it, know that, what you'll get out of it, what you believe, I think. I've gone to a few different psychics in my life. I remember once going to one when I was 18 at the fair. Yeah. And it was like, you go in there, it's like I was expecting you to have like a crystal ball, maybe a goat running around, right? It's not like that. It's more of a conversation. And there's a really good show called The Mentalist where a guy does that and he shows how fake psychics can break that down. Now, I'm not saying it's fake or it's not. Like I said, I believe in that stuff. I think there is things out there that try to contact, or I think people might come back and check on loved ones. I think that's an open... I think there's like... I think that's a 2-lane highway. But I also think around PA, we have a rich history of places that maybe aren't necessarily... the nicest. Like we had a gallows here up on 28th Street. If I'm not mistaken, it's where the rink and where Kinsman Water Park is. Somewhere in that vicinity. But it's on that side by the Kinsman Park, right? So, those things are around. And I already mentioned, like, the old City Hall and places like that. But what do you think? What are some places around here that you think are haunted or maybe have a spectral influence, shall we say? And if you've ever gone to a spiritualist or a psychic or however you want to phrase it, right? Clairvoyant. I'm not talking about one of those 1-800 numbers where you call and the girl with the fake Jamaican accent picks up and it's like, hey, he's behind you right now, sugar, right? Or whatever the case may be. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual sightings, books falling off shelves, items moving, people, experiencing intense cold when it wasn't cold, those sorts of things. And I think that, especially with this new year, I think on the channel here, this is something we're going to look at a lot a lot more. Because we have, like, even the graveyards, right? You'd think if there's haunted places, graveyards would be among the top, right? Because, I mean, like, their physical bodies are there, whether they're cremation or just, you know, buried. So you'd think there might be some kind of tie. Or maybe it's like a tie to an object, right? I think that those things exist. But it's being able to kind of get what you want out of when you see someone who claims to talk to the other side. You get out of that what you want, I believe. Because like I said earlier, sometimes you're so desperate to get a message from a loved one that's passed that you're willing to sift through whatever they're saying to pick out those points to tie it all together. So, oh yeah, this was my dog. My dog sent me a message through the psychic. He said woof, right? Or whatever, right? I've had psychics tell me things about my life and my past. Some of it was accurate, others really far off. And then when it's far off, it's like, wow, you just don't know about this yet. Well, it seems like kind of a cop-out, right? Because like I said, if you could really convene and you really could hold sessions with something beyond this world, out of this plane, you would think that the people you could talk to and get information from would be incredibly valuable, right? Like I said, you could talk to Tesla. You could talk to Diefenbaker, right? What's the deal with those secretaries, right? You could talk to, like, anyone, right? You could Pierre Trudeau, right? What's going on with your kid? What happened there, right? But it's not like that. Instead, like I said, it's put in the shadows, it's in closets, and it's done as a sidebar. So goes your belief system. But I think what we can agree on is that things like the St. Louis ghost light, so many people have experienced or seen things enough. Like I said, Unsolved Mysteries came in the 1980s and had a look at it. I went out there a couple times when I was younger, and I remember one time I saw it. It was huge. It was like a glowing pumpkin, man. It was just big. It was bright. It lit up the whole area. And the next time you go, and there was just a tiny light there. I remember the time a close friend of mine, we went out there with these two young ladies, and he was like, oh man, he asked, what are you going to do if the light comes and tries to grab one of us? I said, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to kick you in the knee. Because I don't have to beat that light. I just have to beat you. And he's like, you would do that too, wouldn't you? I'm like, I probably would. Things like that. So, I mean, I think that there's enough, if enough people see a certain thing in a certain place, and there's more to it than just that, right? There's also the thought process of, if enough people, or if people say something and someone else says something, and enough people start to believe that there might be something there, does it manifest itself just based on the fact that now you have people believing in it, right? Is it real because people believe in it, or is it real because it's real? I know, how's that for a... It's like, that's not a woman, that's a man, as Austin Powers, right? When the guy's, trying to kill him and he's disguised. Those sorts of things. So I think a lot of it is based off your perception, what you want to see out of it, right? And I mean, keep in mind, everything clairvoyancy and stuff has been going back centuries, right? You look at Nostradamus had a mirror, right? And he had the bowl of water, and he would cover himself, and he would look, and he would see and prophesize the future, right? You hear about those things all through history. There's always an advisor, especially with the. If you look at the United Kingdom, you look at places like that. It seemed in the King's Court, especially in around the 12th century, right before the Crusades, and Catholicism really took hold there. There's lots of people seeking guidance from either the clairvoyance, or then it turned into the Catholic Church, right, which is quite similar. There's a belief system set up, and you're doing the will of someone who died for our sins, right? So they're all have similar ties. Usually now, if you go see one, there's you pay for the service. They tell you what they see. And then from there, it kind of goes into something else. So you take out of it what you want, right? Tarot cards always fascinated me. I like to talk more about that with some people that actually do it, because I think that's really interesting, and it's just it ties you into it. But I also know, as someone who interviews people and has worked as a counselor, you know, there's tells on people and there's cold reading, right? So I mean, if you and I had an appointment and I knew you were coming in, right, and you say, oh, so what do you want to come see me? Oh, I want to talk about my Uncle Ted or whatever, right? I could easily try to look up and find stuff on your Uncle Ted or you, right? Oh, you know, you look up online, obituaries are online, right? Things like that. So I mean, if you do go, I would be specific, right? Uncle Ted told me to throw out whatever he had in the second drawer of his dresser, you know, but I don't know what it was, right? But if you do know what it was, then you kind of know. But also too, if you're going in there to be combative with someone who says they're clairvoyant, then it's probably the wrong reason to go. However, it also doesn't hurt to protect yourself a bit, because not everyone who says something is what they're representing. Just like, you know, I heard a quote the other day, just because you have Elton John's glasses doesn't mean you're Elton John, right? Yeah, interesting stuff. I feel like this might be a little rambly. I hope not, because I really would like to get some feedback on this one. What do you think is the most haunted places around Prince Albert? In the Australian area, or in Saskatchewan? I know we got books on it, but what are your personal experiences with that? You know, I know there's Memorial Gardens outside of town. I remember I knew someone that worked there, and I would go there, and there was a guy raking leaves. He was always raking leaves. And then one day, a guy asked him, "Did you see him?" "See who?" "Who'd you see?" Then he's like, "Well, did you see him out there?" I said, "Yeah, there's a guy raking leaves." "That's him." It's not no one who works there. It wasn't even real. But then when you look for him, you couldn't find him. But then every once in a while, you're driving, you'll see this guy just raking leaves. Things like that. It's kind of interesting. It's a very short 20-minute talk tonight. Paranormal activity. Maybe that's something we'll do. Maybe we'll pick one of these most haunted places of Prince Albert, and maybe we'll go check it out for ourselves. That might be a fun activity on a cold winter's night. But like I said, throw your thoughts in the comments below. What are the most haunted places you've seen around town? Have you had any personal experiences you feel like sharing? If you do, you should subscribe and comment on the YouTube channel. And I'll stop saying that so it doesn't haunt your dreams anymore. Okay? All right. Paranormal activity. Well, I'm pretty sure that's trademarked. Paranormal happenings in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, surrounding area. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel. Let me know if you feel like you've been touched by something on the other side. I'm Corey Rennie, the public counselor. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you hopefully in the comments, because this one's got some legs. I think we'll flesh her out. All right, take care, everyone. Stay warm.